All right, well, welcome to another episode of the Ripple Podcast, where we talk about the things that matter to small business. I'm your host, Brian Walker. This is my co-host, Kim.
Hello.
And we have the pleasure of being here with Tangipahoa Parish President, Robby Miller.
Good morning or good afternoon, whenever it is that you're watching this. We appreciate the opportunity to be here.
And we're going to be talking to Robby today about just taking an organization and going through it and tightening it up and making it work better.
Yep. Yeah, we've had the same parish president for, Gordon Burgess was here
29 years.
Oh, I had 40 years in my head.
29 years.
That's still a long time.
He was just short of 30, a little bit more than 29.
Yeah.
And I've been in office now 2 years, 3 months, and 9 days.
Oh my gosh, he's counting the days. It's been that exciting, huh?
It's easy because now we're above the 11th, so I can do the math fast.
That's messed up. Well, I can't imagine going into an organization as big as parish government, right? And then to look at it when it's been run by the same person for so long. And I know when I was a kid, it was a whole different framework, or just the way that our local parish government was organized. I know it was police jury system, and now it's home rule charter. So it's very different. And he was there for a long time, doing a great job, but it was time for him. He felt like it was time to retire. And
well, he did a very good job, especially if you look at where we started from the home rule charter and how it grew. If you back up and look at it, it was very much like a small family-run business, because when he came on board, there was zero money. It was almost like a brand new startup. Literally tried to file bankruptcy. So then you start building the organization. Well, you have your hand on everything. Then he had to, from the beginning, he had to make sure the dollars, the few pennies that were there, were spent wisely and could pay the bills that they were making commitments to. So, and then a few years later, a tax was enacted. People finally trusted enough to do the tax. So some money started rolling in. The parish started growing. The amount of money continued to grow, so you could build the organization and do more things to provide more services.
Right.
And as, early on, the people were just worried about just get our potholes fixed.
yeah.
And then it became, what else are you going to do? Are you going to clean the ditches? Are you going to get this? And just keep adding on. And Mr. Burgess did a very good job building that. But it was very much like a small family-run business, because he was able to really be associated and involved in every bit of it. Well, now fast forward 30 years later, and we're a real organization with structure, and it's way bigger than it was in 1986. We have just shy of about 270 to 300 employees that were there. I made the commitment when we won that everyone that was working there was going to have an opportunity to work with us. I knew that there would be some attitude changes, some differences, obviously in personality. I mean, any two different people can always have a different personality. So I understood that maybe some people would have the opportunity to excel that hadn't before, or some people that were in positions weren't ready for the responsibility and the authority that was going to come with the new management style that I had. So we were willing to give everyone a chance, and let's see how it goes. And so the big thing, a lot of it was, we still have to get the work done. So you have to have they have to have the team, the players, and so the work was still getting done. It was just kind of how it was getting done, and how it was managed, and how it was being watched over.
Well, that's one thing I know, that whether it's a small business, whether it's corporate America, whatever it is, when somebody new is coming in, people start talking and they get scared. Am I going to lose my job? There's a lot of uncertainty to that. So that's one of the things, you just talked about, that when you took over, was assessing what the situation is and making sure that everybody had that opportunity.
Well,
if they wanted.
And I was trying to be as clear as I could during the campaign and during the transition. It's like, you're going to have a chance. You have a chance not only to just keep your job, you might have a chance to flourish.
Right.
And so I wanted to make sure I was trying to get that message out. It's still uncertainty, still not sure, still unknown, still a lot of rumors of people talking who don't know what they're talking about, saying things that they shouldn't. And I tried to do my best to talk to everyone in the organization, and I definitely did it with all the upper management and middle managers. Like, I don't know if I got to every single person, but I got to most of them, all the upper directors and their middle managers, and talked to them about what they were doing, how they did it, what they liked, what they'd like to do better, where the problems were that they saw. Did a lot of listening. obviously I had ideas on what I thought, but it was good to confirm many of the ideas, but to also debunk some of the ideas that I had. There were some thoughts of, to be frank, there were thoughts that, these people really are, they're government workers. They don't really care about their job, right?
Yeah.
That's so far from the truth. These people want to do a great job. Sometimes they're just not given the proper authority and the opportunity to do it. So whenever I sat down with those folks, especially the directors, because I told them, I said, listen, I'm not sure how how it was before, but you're going to do your job. I'm going to support you to do your job.
Yeah.
So I need to know, do you understand your job? Do you understand what the expectations are of what you're supposed to do? And to almost every one of them, yes, I definitely understand. Do you have the tools to do your job? Whenever I say tools, I mean, is it equipment? Is it personnel? Is it support? Is it software? Is it, what is it that you need? What tools do you have? Those tools? And for the most part, they thought that they did. And I said, okay, do you have you understand the responsibility of their job? And they, oh yeah. And I'd say, do you have the authority to do your job? And that was the magic question was, do you have the authority? And I would get deer in headlights.
So to make a decision to do what you need to do without.
They choose to, we need to do X right now. And that maybe somebody's going to come question them, but nobody's going to chew them out. Nobody's going to fire them over it.
Yep.
As long as it's legal, moral, ethical, it's our job. You took the information you had, you made a good decision, the best decision you thought you could make. We go with it. But whenever I'd ask that question, do you have the authority? There would, several of them were deer in headlights, like, oh my God. So you will, you're going to have it.
Yeah.
And
but with that comes big responsibility.
The responsibility comes with it. So your responsibility. You're going to expect it. I'm holding you accountable to it, and you're going to have the authority to do it. So, most of them were excited to have it, but didn't really understand what it meant. So whenever I'd get the person come in that's been there for a while, would come in and say, hey, we have to do Y, X, Y, or Z. And I'd say, and they'd look at me like, wait, and I said, so it's our job, right? We have the budget to do it. So why are you asking me? Well, go do it.
But there's consequences to that decision that you make.
But they also, and I tried to explain a lot about, listen, the person who never makes a mistake never does anything. They've done nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
risk.
There's nobody that, I mean, if you're driven to do something and to work and to make things happen and to just do your job, just go do your work every day. There's going to be some mistakes happen. Don't want to repeat them. So, and you're going to get called down on some of them, but it's going to be a corrective, not to chew you out, not to fuss at you, not to make you feel, to demean you or put you down. It's to, let's get it right next time. So next time you do, but that's, we're still working through that process to let the people, the folks all the way down. I mean, I was taught as a young kid, if you want to be the manager, work like the manager, or work like, maybe not that manager, work like,
right. Yeah.
Work like the person you want to be one day.
Yep.
And so the same thing. I mean, look, we have a public works director today that started off picking up trash at the landfill. That's where he started. Yeah. And he's worked his way all the way up to be the public works director. So, I mean, he worked where he saw what he wanted to be, and he did what he needed to.
Yeah.
Speaking of authority, we were just having that conversation with someone the other day, and we were talking about delegation. And they made that exact statement that you never delegate without giving the authority. So if you are going to delegate something to someone, you have to be willing to stand behind that person and the decisions that they make and allow them to do what it is that you've told them to do.
And sometimes it's going to be done differently than you wanted. And you can talk about it. And I've done it a lot where it's like, okay, you made that decision. Talk to me why. What's your thought process on why you did that?
Right.
Or why we did it that way. And saying, okay, I get it. Did you think about this or that? And listen, there's no doubt that all three of us, if we had to do a project right now, we'd all do it differently. It might at the end, the same result may happen, but how did we get there? And so, what are we looking for? The end result or how to get it there?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Because that's one of the things about great leadership, right? That we all hear about every time we read a book, listen to a podcast, read an article, is that you can't micromanage people. You need to allow them to do what you hired them to do. Well, you can.
You're not going to keep.
But
you don't need anybody that's really all that great, though.
Right. Absolutely.
Well,
who's to say that I got all the right answers? I'm gonna tell you right
Right.
now, I know I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was 2016. You were kind of baptized by fire. Yeah, 2
Or
floods.
water.
Well,
Yeah.
almost washed away.
And I remember Dawson Primes talking about that specific thing, that that
Dawson Primes, for
he
those who
was-
don't know, is director of
Emergency
management, Homeland Security.
yeah,
And-
and he made that comment that he felt like for the first time he was actually given the authority to make those decisions that he needed to make, that he almost didn't know what to do with it at first.
I think you're right. And believe me, I was being educated by them on what my responsibilities were, because although, there'd been some events prior to me being in office, I wasn't there to experience it. And when the parish president or the president of the United States signs an emergency declaration, or even whenever I signed one for just the parish, but this one started with the governor, then the president, and us all pretty much within about a 2 or 3 hour period, we all signed a declaration of emergency. When we signed that, the way the state law and federal law and all that, the parish president, became the authority in Tangipahoa Parish to make anything happen.
Yeah.
Everybody in Tangipahoa Parish has to listen to what I had to say or do or charge, whatever the right word is to use. So I was like, whoa, that's a lot of responsibility and thought. It's 2 months to the day of being in office. Well, it also establishes that the emergency manager, Dawson Primes, is number 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't go from me to the sheriff, or me to the council chair, or me to the somebody. It goes to emergency manager, Dawson Primes. So it was myself, then Dawson. So in the absence of me, Dawson has to make those decisions. But at the same time, it's like, I walked in the door that morning, about 3 o'clock that morning, and signed it. They kind of told me what the overall arching ramifications of that signature were. And so I was like, okay, let's get the
roll.
EOC going. And Dawson was like, but I said, let's go. He said, but we never. I said, we never did it that way before. This is how we're doing it now. Let's go.
Yeah.
So there was some definite learning experience for both of us. But it obviously it worked out well. We had no one in that first flood. We had no fatalities. We had no serious injuries. And our citizens were well protected and taken care of immediately. Mm-hmm. We're still working on the recovery, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, you talked about the people when you became parish president, the ones that were worried about, am I going to keep my job and all that. Now, you kept the majority. Everyone. Wow. So we know that it's important. Jim Collins writes about it in his book, Good to Great, about having the right people on the bus, but not only having the right people on the bus, having them in the right seat on that bus. How much
moving
did
around.
people move around?
We've had our share. Now I'll tell you that there was a group of probably a dozen or so folks that had been around a long time, and they retired with Mr. Burgess too. So right away we didn't replace any of those. We kind of just rearranged, and we came in with some thoughts about certain people and where they should be and what we should do with them, and from my discussions during that transition, what should happen. I listened to the folks that I felt like were trustworthy and had good heads on their shoulders, and we made a few adjustments here and there. But for the most part, I kind of let it. Let's work a little while under our method, and we've got more people decided to retire. Some people felt like it was better to work under a different environment, so they went somewhere else. And then we brought in some of our own or move people around. We're real big on trying to move people up. First place we look is trying to find, do we have somebody inside the organization that can do this job?
Yeah.
Is there somebody that has been working to be the next level up? And
kind of putting people where their strengths are.
right. And moving them up. And we've done a very good job with that. Let's face it, with 270 or so folks, you're not going to be 100%. But and there's always a little bit of tension going on no matter what. But the big thing is there was early on, and I don't know if I should say this, but early on there was a saying is like, do your job and be quiet. Don't worry about if they're doing their job. Don't worry about the supervisors letting him. Just don't worry about what happened a month ago.
Focus on
Just
yourself.
Do your job, and the rest of it will start taking care of itself. We assure you the rest of it will take care of itself if you let us just have time.
Yep.
And I think it's begun to, 2 years into it, I think we're pretty close to having it where people
Settling
just do
in.
their job and don't worry about it. We still have folks who worry that, somebody takes off work or somebody's not doing this or that. So, but, do your job and be quiet is probably a real good insight for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
So those people going from a place where they, they were in a position, but maybe didn't feel like they had that authority in the position, or they were in a position, but they were in the wrong position. They're still with you today. How different are those people?
Oh, some of them are just unbelievably great at what they do. They understand what needs to be done. They take responsibility. They run with they understand that our approach is if the job needs to be done, it's in our budget, it's legal, moral, ethical, do it. Just get it done. Our when we came in office, the workload, the work orders were probably running a 2-month time frame if they got put in just a normal cycle of 2 months. We're down now to where we have it's probably done within, depending on what it is, if it requires other people's work. But if we can just do it, it's down to probably within the week that it comes in, maybe 2 weeks. I will tell you, not to get into a lot of the nuts and bolts of parish government, but to dig a ditch, you think, okay, you just got to send the equipment to go there and dig a ditch. No, you have to call Dottie, and they have to come out and mark all the lines and all the gas lines, the sewer lines, the phone cables and everything else, so we don't dig them up. And we still dig them up because they don't always catch them all, and sometimes we miss the marks. But that process, you have to identify exactly where you're going to go. So somebody's got to go out there and decide we're going to go from this mark to this mark on the street. Then you got to have to call Dottie and tell them exactly where it is. They have to get their team out there within. They usually give you about 48 hours to get it done. So that's 2 or 3 days for that.
Which is faster than I thought it would have been.
So, but the whole thing, if you called in today, the whole process takes about a week before we can even say, okay, we're ready to go. And then from the time Dottie marks it, you have to get it done within 3 to 4 days, or those marks don't count anymore.
Okay.
So.
Wow.
So there's a lot of nuts and bolts and check boxes that have to happen, but it's not just, hey, I call and I need to get my ditch dug. You can't do it.
There's a process to it.
But all that, the folks, all that stuff was all being done before. They all knew what to do. The big push was to make sure too that our customers, our citizens, are up to date. They know what's happening. I don't know if it was. I know that. Some of the complaints I would get is I don't know. The citizen would call. You can tell I come from a customer service background.
Yeah,
right?
that's my next.
Customer.
I'm talking about that.
So the citizen calls and says, I called 2 weeks ago. I don't know anything. Well, now there's a process to keep them informed. The person who calls gets notified and gets updated. Not that it's good, but you can push things down the road as long as you're informing people and they know what's happening. You can kind of put it off a little bit. It's whenever you try and hide from them, it doesn't work out. So our folks, most of them, they just call and tell them. I promise you, you can get fussed at sometimes, but most times people can go, okay, thank you for letting me know. And it's a 30-second phone call and you're done. But the citizen knows what's happening, so they're happy and or at least they're accepting. They might not be happy, but they're accepting.
Well, that was something that I remember real strongly from during the campaign was the customer service approach, that I'd never really thought about the fact that I am a customer of parish government. I'm a tax-paying citizen.
And I'm sure you heard me, and I still say, just because we're the monopoly and you have to come to us to get it doesn't mean that we get to treat you bad. We need to treat you just as well as if you had a choice. And you do, because the choice is the elected officials. You can decide not to hire us back.
Right.
Well, and that shows in the org chart y'all have created.
Yes. It's the org chart. I'm not sure it's actually displayed, but the way I display it is I'm upside down. I'm at the very bottom. All the folks that touch the citizens first are at the top. The citizens are first, and then all the people that touch them first are up there. And it dwindles down to me. It was something we did when I was I had our retail business, because let's face it, if it gets all the way to me, we've got several levels that have dropped the ball,
really messed up,
and haven't taken care of the citizens like they should have. So with that, though, that again, it's the authority, the responsibility goes back up with those folks to get it done. I know I said it a couple times already, legal, moral, ethical. It's our job. Do it.
Yeah.
And obviously, there are financial constraints on us that some things just aren't feasible to do. But there's not enough money today to do all of it at one time, so
Right.
we have to chop it up and spread it out.
But coming back to that, when you go into an organization and have to change a mindset, I'm not saying that wasn't the mindset of parish government before, but it's a different look. It's a different approach to the people that walk in the door, whether it's the permit office or animal control or the landfill or whatever. How do you, as a leader,
Well,
get people on board?
Well, I'll tell you that at first it was kind of like, that's just the way it's supposed to be. Everybody knows how to do that. You grew up that way. Maybe I grew up that way. You take care of, the idea, just simple things as growing up as a kid, that you're taught to hold the door for the next, most of the time ladies, but whoever's behind you coming in the door, you hold the door, make sure they can catch the door, don't let it close. When you're walking down the street, there's paper on the ground, pick it up, throw it away. Those things, I kind of thought everybody was taught that way. Playing sports, you got to be a team player. You understand how to sacrifice and give, and sometimes you don't always get what you want.
Right.
You kind of think that everybody, since you had self-reference, that everybody's got this. Well, they don't.
Right.
So what we've done is, one, we talk about it from internally, what's expected, and two, we brought in some outside trainers. We realized that we had people that had moved up through the organization that all they ever saw was the person before them do this job. So if that person was good and customer-centric and understood how to talk to people and how to motivate workers and to handle customers and all that, well, then you got a good replacement move up. If that person was whatever level they were, that's what you ended up getting, because all they knew. Well, so we started realizing, it's like, how do you take somebody who's been driving a tractor and just and be the manager of 5 other tractor drivers when he's never been trained on it? So we brought in some outside training to do that. We've had 4, 5, 6 sessions. We pull them off the road, we pull them out, and we put them in that classroom for a while and go through the training exercises, whether in team building.
I bet they really appreciated it.
They did. Well, at first there was a lot of pushback, like, I'm not going to go, oh God, it's wasting my time. It's like, and these guys like they like working outside. So when you bring them inside and stick them sitting at a chair, they don't, they'd rather be moving.
But you're investing
in ladies,
in them.
right? But to the T, everyone was like, I'm so glad y'all made me do this, and some of them were not even the managers. It's like just people. That's like, hey, these folks, and we asked those managers that we were putting in, pick 1 or 2 people you think are that you think might be a manager down the road, this year, next year, 2 years from now. So we're starting to train even people lower than that to let them understand we're investing in you, and ideally is to move them up in parish government. But if they take that skill set and go put it in a private sector. In Tangiboo Parish, preferably. We just improve Tangiboo Parish.
Right. Yeah, that's a great outlook.
It's okay, so, and we give somebody else a chance to come.
Coach in Little League or at their church or whatever.
Or in another business.
Or in another business,
if they leave and go work at one of our private sector companies, or a new company comes and they take some of our folks, I think it's a testament to us that we've built a good team, that people, private sector wants our guys and ladies.
Yeah.
Now, aside from people, one of the things that we've seen that you've done is put into place processes. You've done things to make the citizens of Tangiboo Parish, to make it easier on them to get whatever it is that they need.
We have a long way to go. It was a goal from the beginning to say, okay, what are the things that frustrate me or frustrate friends that I know? And one of the first ones was, if you live in a rural area and you need to get your electricity turned on, you have to get a sewer permit, you have to get a this, you have to get a that. It's like, oh my God, I got to go everywhere in the world.
Right.
And it was like, okay, we want them to try and make it to one stop. If they have to go across the hall, walk them across the hall, call over there, send them. Just hold their hand a little bit, give them the attention they deserve. Make it easy. We've done it where you can do it over the telephone. We're waiting for our new software to be put in place so you can do the whole process over the phone or online, whatever. You don't even have to talk to us. You can do it online yourself. So we've made some investments in technology. We've made some investments in just attitude of our people, and looked at the system and said, okay, what can we eliminate, or how can we, how do we make one form that we can use at both locations?
Oh my God, that's one of the things that drives me crazy when I have to. It's worse with schools when you have to fill out 15 forms and you're putting.
Do it with 4 kids.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you got me on that one, but I definitely understand that. But you know what I'm saying, when you're having to fill out the same thing 4 times for one kid times 4 kids.
Right.
It's annoying.
So, so we looked at like you said, we looked at the process. Okay, what are we making people do twice? What are we making them do 3 times? Can we get it down from 3 to 2? Can we get it down from 2 to 1? And that process is still ongoing. And unfortunately, there's some of it. I shouldn't say a lot. Actually, a lot of the reasoning for that comes from either the federal government or state government requiring certain things, and the parish they need certain information, and we need information to help us do the job, actually execute.
Yeah.
So we're doing everything we can to work around that, or build a system that makes it where we're doing the hard work and the customer doesn't have to do it.
Now, you've added a position that's very interesting, and it's a position that I've never really heard of. I don't know if this is something that's typical or not. I'm sure every organization like this has IT people, but you have added a position in the form of John Dunnington. And what is the title of his role?
We're still trying to figure out exactly the name of what it is. I can describe what he does a whole lot easier than I have a name. And it started whenever I was in the IT business and working with customers. And the part that I loved to do as a technology person was, making it work, plug in, turn it on, make it print, all that stuff. There's a ton of people that do that, and I was skilled at that. But that wasn't the rewarding part. The rewarding part was, how do I make you better using this technology, using software? How do I take a 5-person office and make them compete and efficient against a 25-person office, because their systems are so good, they're using the technology so well. So John's job is to actually look at what we do, how we work, and make us use technology better, to pull it back and say, okay, how do we create these? How do we create these forms that the data can move from one section to another? How do we communicate to the world through for us and you guys who are helping us, a single source where that same information goes out to 4 or 5 places, but we don't have to go put it in 4 or 5 places. We're still trying to define exactly how it works, and he gets kind of pulled. But his instructions are, if he touches hardware, I'll beat him up. Although he's a big fella, so I don't know if I can. But I don't want to catch you figuring out why something doesn't print. Now, if it's why this form doesn't print properly, that's a little different. He's working on the form. But the idea that if he sends it over to the printer and it doesn't print, call our support people.
Yeah.
You go and work on something else that makes us efficient, makes us better on how do we use this technology. And that's I think we called it a technology specialist or something like that. But for the world, he's an chief information officer.
I probably
that's
aggravate.
That's the only way to really call it for people to know what it might be.
Yeah.
I probably aggravate people when I say this, but you know why he's so smart, right?
Did you teach him?
I did.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
I was his 8th grade teacher.
That's incredible.
I don't know
He's
if you knew that.
He's a very, very bright young man.
He is.
He understands. They all laugh because we talk and we actually. He understands me, and I understand about half of what he says because he's above me. But the rest of the people just leave the room. It's like, when y'all figure it out, let us know.
Well, if you don't mind, I actually want to rewind a little bit, because all this time, I've never asked you this, day one. So you're elected, and you had about a month and a half, I think?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more than that. It's about, just say
So
roughly 6 or 8 weeks.
Inauguration day is like really day one. Day one was really, for you, the day or the moment after the election. Because I know you started right away. So tell me about day one.
Well, I will say that Mr. Burgess was gracious to come to the office, come listen, come watch. I think the night of, and I've said this, I don't know if I've actually said it on a recording, but the first night it's like, okay, I caught the dog. I'm the dog that caught the car. So how do we start? So anyway, I went met with Mr. Burgess several times and started meeting with the people, all the people during that interim. I wasn't really involved in any of the decision making so much. A few things I was, because it was going to be more longevity to the decision, but all the day-to-day stuff, Mr. Burgess continued to do. But it was just getting ready and listening, do a lot of listening to figure out, again, was I correct on some of my assumptions? And unfortunately, those folks are trying to figure out how to win me over, I guess you'd say, or to
Yeah.
make sure that you can trust me. I promise you, trust me.
Right.
And some of those were correct, and some of them were not. And I had to kind of figure that out. But I just what I did is okay. If you tell me, I'm going to believe what you tell me until I can't anymore.
Right.
And so
Innocent until proven guilty.
yeah, so we listened, and we you did a lot of talking to a lot of them and taking a lot of notes, and just waited. And then talking about my first day, the office was supposed to have been finished. That building had not been painted or carpet changed or anything, and the whole time it had been built. So they thought they were going to get it finished before. Well, of course, like most jobs, it over. So I worked out of the council chambers for the first 2.5 weeks I was in office
Oh my
because
gosh.
my office, the floor was pulled up. There was
Yeah.
no furniture. But it was to me, it was great. It's been since day one. It's been it's probably not the right word, but it's just been fun. Rewarding is probably the proper way to say it. But it's a blast to me. I love the challenge. Even the days that I have to tell people no, even the days that are tough decisions, I haven't one time said, "Oh my God, what did I get into?" Even in floods, it was more. It was much more. What do we have to do?
Yeah.
What do we have to do to help these people? It was never
Right.
like, why me? It's like let's just get it done.
Well, you don't have time for that.
No,
I mean, it's,
if you are that way, then you probably shouldn't be there.
yeah.
And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. It was just we got to do. We got
Right,
to go.
right,
We
right.
got to move here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Get things going.
So from a leadership standpoint, the people who are watching and listening to this, they, they're looking for what are those things that I can do in my organization, and in a way, you actually have a bit of a luxury as to being a new person who's coming in because people expect change. They know that things are going to happen, but when you are that leader that is in an organization and has been for a while and needs to make change, it's much more difficult. What is some advice that you have for people that need to take an organization and just give it an overhaul?
And I was like this, and I said, I became the 3-year-old. And like, 3-year-old, isn't it? Why? Why?
Ask a lot
Why?
of questions.
Just keep asking why. And though we do it this way because we've always done it, is unacceptable. And it was probably 3 months ago. Somebody was in the hallway, and I was just in earshot, and 2 of our directors were talking, and one of them said, "Well, we've always done it that way." And they said, "Oh my God, don't let Robby hear you say that." So I think even as a long term, even 2 years into it, there's a lot of things we're settling in. We as the leader has to make sure you keep asking why. Why do we do it like this? And if you don't change it, it's okay. You reevaluated it, and you look at it, and you see the process. I don't see a better way to do it right now. But continually look at all your processes and why do we do it? Why do we why do we have to tell that customer no? We don't do that. Why? If you're a business, why don't you do it? Is it your core? Okay, that you don't because it's not your core business. So know what your business is too. So.
Well, you said that 2 things. One, you were just talking about cutting off the whole, because that's the way we've always done it. A funny aside, there was a recipe, and I don't remember where I read it. You know what I'm talking about with the ham?
Go ahead. Yeah, do it.
So there's this old recipe that somebody had, and they're teaching their daughter how to make the holiday ham. And she was like, first you cut off each end. Do you know this? Cut off each end of the ham, and never asked why. So, okay, and it's just part of Grandma's recipe. And finally, somebody had the smarts to say, why are you cutting off the end of the ham? Well, I don't know. My mom always did it that way. Okay, Mama, well, my grandma always did it that way. They finally got back, and she was like, it wouldn't fit in the pan.
Right. Yeah.
And you're like, we've been cutting off the end of the ham every
We
year.
have big pans now.
Yeah. So,
well,
and
like I said,
makes sense.
There were plenty of things that we kept the same. There were lots of things because the law required it, or because of governmental restrictions, or whatever it was, or it was just a good process. But why was like I said, I felt like a 3-year-old. Why? Well, because we did it that way. Why? Well, because why? And finally, they get frustrated and finally give me an answer.
So ask questions. It's all about assessment, right? So finding out the why.
Yeah.
And I think it's Simon Sinek has that book. I think that's the name of it.
Starts with why.
Starts with why.
Yeah.
And it's not, why do we do it that way, and why do we do it, period.
Okay.
You know, why? What's driven you? Why did I want to be parish president? Because I thought I could do a good job for our parish. Because I thought that I could take us in a direction. And that probably the wrong thing to say, but maybe I'm not the best one, but I was the best one who stepped up. So sometimes, why did we step up? Because I thought it was time. And what's your core? What's your core? That's your whys also.
That's really good, because in business, we've experienced it ourselves, is getting distracted with the next cool thing. Like, oh, well, let's go in this direction and offer this as a service, or let's do that. But it's pulling you away from what your real purpose and mission and what you're really good at.
And y'all are in a business that requires evaluation of the next thing very quickly, and what is going to be the next big thing. And sometimes, as we know in the technology business, it takes off like a rocket and then just fizzles out. So you can't really run with all of it. But you know what you're trying to offer, and that's making sure your customers don't have to experience all that. You figure it all out for them. In our case, it's making sure that we're cleaning up our parish. We're trying to make an image of people wanting to move here, be it business, be it individuals, and then us moving here whenever things have to happen to take care of the issues. There are, unfortunately or fortunately, parish government I have this box that I work in,
Right.
but this box affects all the other boxes of everything else, of the school system, of the cities, of council on aging, even of the drainage district, all those things. And then how does that turn into the quality of life for our citizens to make sure that they're proud to say they live in Tangipahoa Parish? And I want our citizens to say that they're proud of it. And listen, it's easy to get caught up looking at your if you're somebody who wants to fix things, somebody who wants to make it better, it's easy to find all the negatives and get caught thinking that there's a lot of bad, and you forget to look at all the good things.
Right.
So it's another thing in business is make sure you pay attention to all the things you're doing well, all the things that you are doing great, and fix it. Be aware of those ones that are negatives, but don't focus on them so much that you think, oh my God, my business I'm doing a horrible job. No, you're doing a great job. You're just, because you're good, because you want to be great.
Yeah.
You're focusing on those 3 or 4 things that you need to improve on.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with parish government. We're and I get caught. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe that's.
Yeah.
And then you realize, wait a minute, what about all these other things?
Yep.
And I have the list of whenever I give the state of the parish. I was like, what am I going to talk about this? And I go look, and the list it's up to like 9 or 10 pages of things that we've done.
Yeah.
And some of them are little, but some of them are pretty substantial.
Yeah. But even the little ones are big to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really good, because we do the same thing. It's you're your own worst critic, right? And so, like you said, just focusing on those things and forgetting about, whoa, look at all the stuff that we've done.
We need to work. We need to make sure businesses and us are always keeping that positive list running too, and making
That's
sure
great
that
advice.
every now and then you pat yourself on the back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do you have any resources that you would like to share with our listeners? Anything you're reading, anything you're listening to, or a person that you're...
Well, I listen whenever I drive. I listen to the radio, the Sirius, the Message station. That's pretty much the only time it's on. Whether people, daily, throughout the day, I'm always praying that I have God's wisdom on what I'm doing, because I definitely know that it's not mine. And then one of the things that drives us, there's a book, How to Win Customers and Keep Them for Life by Brian Tracy.
Okay.
And it's an old book, very little paper thin book, and we read it back in my PC warehouse days, and it's kind of this. Although that book and then all the ones since then, they pretty much, you could take that one and just rewrite it a different way.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
And
like ours is Raving Fans, but it's probably the same thing.
Yeah. So, but the beginning of that book talks about some of the things that, and it goes back to what you do right and helping people. And one of them is that about 75% of the people, if they just get to tell you their problem and you do nothing to solve it, nothing, you just listen.
Give them an outlet.
They're happy.
Yeah.
And about somewhere around 85% of the people, if you attempt to fix it and you can't, they're still happy.
Right. You try.
And then if you fix it, you're at like 98%.
Yeah.
They love you.
That's good.
So, listen, and ask the question why, and then do everything you can within your power to make it work.
Yep. All right.
Well, Robbie, we've enjoyed having you on. It's some great takeaways in this podcast for our business leaders that are going to be watching and listening. So we do appreciate you being here.
Well, I'm glad you got
Yeah,
me. I was
thank you.
kind of wondering that I would be able to talk for this long about anything, but
Oh, please.
y'all pulled it out, and we had a good time.